Welcome to the Running Channel Podcast with me, Sarah Hartley, Andy Baddeley, and this week we've managed to get rid of Rick. We've upgraded. We've brought in Mo, who in the last few weeks has been to Tokyo, then didn't fly back, went straight to Australia, and has now come back. I can't keep up, but I'm so excited to hear about all of your adventures.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know what time zone I'm in right now. I'm exhausted, but I'm happy to be back.
Nice.
Well, you're just as likely to be more coherent than Rick anyway, regardless of the jet lag. But today we're going to be talking about fasting, so abstaining from eating and potentially drinking for various reasons. Could be ethical, religious, could be for fitness or health or motivation reasons. We're going to talk about the different types of intermittent fasting, what it means, and also what that could be effect-wise on your performance. So
speaking of fast, should we just get straight into it?
Oh, nice.
Let's do it. We'll also be covering off the latest running news and your questions, so let's go.
So we're going to be talking about fasting, and Mo's already made the pun for us, but we're going to have a very quick catch up now because next week's episode is going to be a full debrief on your fast 5K. Fast. I'm from up north, so I say fast.
I would say fast.
Yeah.
Although yesterday
Did you feel
wasn't fast enough.
Oh,
No.
Sarah.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know.
The big sub 20-minute attempt.
Yeah, was not sub 20.
Oh, we've given the game away straight away.
Sorry, we're going straight in. We went out yesterday. It was a beautiful day. I had a great pacer. I had some wonderful people from the Running Channel community. And once again, I got in my own head and let myself down.
No, you didn't let anybody down. You just gave it a good go. And sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
Like there was a big hill in the middle,
Yeah.
which neither of us were expecting. Actually, it's probably the least prepared I've been course recce-wise.
Yeah. It looked so straightforward. It was
Yes.
like a lovely little diamond in the middle with just two bits either side. And what we didn't see
is that the out and back little dog leg was
Yeah.
out around some cones and back, but literally turned around a cone at the bottom of a hill, turned to come straight back up this hill. And it wasn't long, it was maybe 100 metres or something.
No.
But certainly in the middle of a 5K when you're already starting to hurt. And we've talked about this, but the biggest difference in the 5K is there's so little margin for error, and you have to be, if you want to run your absolute best, you have to be pushing the whole way. You don't get a 5-10 minute period to kind of chill out like you might get in a marathon or a half marathon, where you can kind of get away from it and get away with it and make up for it.
And what was weird as well is that there was one person in front of us, like at that point, and sorry, we'll debrief properly next week, but one thing that was funny is looking at all of the results. Did you look at the female list?
I think you're right at the top of the female list, right?
Yeah, no, that wasn't what I was getting at. But it was the field that we were in was absolutely phenomenal, and I definitely felt like a sense of imposter syndrome. But there was some really fast, like under 17. I think the second or third place was like under 13, and everyone was just absolutely gunning it. But then when we got to the bottom of that, like downhill to then turn and come back uphill, there was one person in our little pack that like stopped and walked to go around the corner, and that was going from kind of every single person is all out, no one's talking, all you can just hear is heavy breathing. I mean, apart from you were out for a walk, but and then to see someone go from like full pelt down a hill to then stop and walk was like, oh, this is quite hard, isn't it?
Well, at least it gives you the sense, you realise that everyone else is working really hard around you.
Yeah.
I felt bad. So anyone that was in that race, I'm going to apologise to them if they're listening to the podcast, because obviously my job was to pace you. And also we're making a video. So, we're really careful not to get in anyone else's way. But I'm also trying to talk because there's no video without some kind of commentary. Yeah. And so I appreciate that at various points we were either being passed by people or passing people, and they're sort of getting a commentary from me at the same time. like
we're trundling along, we're 3K in.
I'm like, at this point, this is how you should be feeling. And I can almost imagine these people glancing across at me going, yeah, that's exactly how I'm feeling.
Yeah. No, it's hard. But I think hopefully what we've shown is that, and I got so many really lovely comments on Strava, on the Running Channel Club, on Instagram, on TikTok as well, of people saying like, thank you for going for a goal that is scary, because I think like that's what I always try to do, and I think that's what a lot of people try to do. Like, you don't set a goal that's comfortable. Like you're always like, when you did your sub 3 Mo, like there has to be a part of you that's like,
it's kind of comfortable now.
I'm
joking. Sorry.
Mate, I was with you on a bike the whole time. It was not comfortable then.
It was a terrible goal back then.
But you achieved it, but there is that sense of, okay, I genuinely, like on the start line, obviously mentally you need to be in a state of like, okay, this is it, I'm going to get it. But when you set that goal, you do, I think a lot of people, like, we like doing it where it's like, wow, I genuinely don't know if I can do that, because it's exciting. And hopefully one day, very soon, I will do it. But I will never stop setting goals which are, it's like, oh, can she do it? Because I think that's what a lot of people do, and I always want to show the days where it doesn't go to plan as well as the days that do, because for the amount of people that I got messages from yesterday that were like, I raced today as well and smashed it, I had exactly the same amount of people being like, I did this race and just missed it.
It's the nature of it. It doesn't always quite go to plan, and I think there are definitely times in the year and in your running life where setting a sensible, very achievable goal is the right thing to do, because you might have had a long layout from the sport or whatever. Then sometimes, taking yourself out of your comfort zone and just being like, I don't know. I genuinely don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to give it a good go. So those scary goals. And actually that's the topic for this week's extra episode of the podcast that we'll be recording for the Running Channel Club. And we had a couple of members of the Running Channel Club running with us.
So cool.
Yesterday. And we also had a lot of shouts out on the course from various people supporting you, which was really lovely.
Yeah. Really, really nice.
I want to ask though, the last 2 big races that you've done,
you've
had 2 different pacemakers. One of them sat on your left, Mo, for the marathon. One of them sat on your right, me.
Yeah.
What are the comparisons? Dare we ask?
I had to be on the course a lot longer, so I ran out of things to say. So that's my defense.
No, genuinely, you're both brilliant. I feel like me and Andy had a chat yesterday, or maybe I had this chat with Tom. I think I'm just honestly awful at trusting people.
Oh yeah, no, we had that chat on the warm down, which I've got a you would call it a cool down. But I've got a Strava comment to read in a second. But we were having a chat, weren't we, about your trust issues?
I think I just don't trust people.
Because you were assuming.
And I'm really sorry.
You were assuming, we'll talk about this next week in loads of detail, but you're assuming that I was going to be running a lot faster than you needed to be, just to kind of get you way under the goal.
Yeah.
And therefore you panicked a bit that you didn't actually need to be running with me. Whereas I was trying to run exactly the right pace. Yeah,
but so this is how stupid my brain goes in these situations. And this is why I want to do the debrief next week as well, is because currently I am trying to absorb as much information on like psychology and running as possible. So I'm reading a really interesting book at the moment. Even though the race was yesterday, I'm already like 300 pages into this book, trying to understand. My brain literally just was flip-flopping from like, Andy's sabotaging this, he's going to make me run slower than, or to like, Andy's trying to get me a 1940 and I can't do it like that. And I know you're not, you're a lovely person, you wanted me to do well. But yeah, I think what I've learned from both of those, which maybe I should have put together before yesterday, but sometimes I think you have to live it to learn it, is I need to help the cause, not like put all of my faith in someone else.
Because I think you put all your eggs in the basket of like, you weren't going to look at your watch, you're just going to let me do it.
But then all that my brain had left to do, because I wasn't allowed to talk, obviously for like the right reasons, but all my brain had to think about, same with London, was like, oh, you're not very good. You can't do this. Why did you think you could do this? This was a terrible idea. So I think actually, if I am going to have a pacer, I need like this, the support alongside to be like, stop getting in your own head, you're an idiot. But I also need to be part of the like, okay, we've just hit the split. Like I think if I'd known the split that we ran for the second kilometre, which was too slow, I think I would have pulled it back in the third rather than getting slower. But because I had no idea, did you two not communicate the splits during?
No, I didn't.
No, because our game plan, and that's not your fault at all. Because I was like, don't tell me. Just drag me to the end.
Like it's impossible to know what to go off. But actually, I was going off the course markers, and so our second kilometre wasn't too slow by the course markers. It was too slow on GPS.
Right. Okay.
So it's and we were quite a bit ahead, and also like the first one. Anyway, we'll go into this in more detail. But obviously, we did a warm up together. Then we did the race. Then we did a
warm down.
Cool down.
Warm down. But you said Andy made me do a warm down, I think is what you called your Strava activity. Mo, what would you call it?
I'm cool down all the way. But
so it's 2 against 1 here. You and Sarah both on team cool down. But James Bell on Strava's got my back. He says that according to ChatGPT, the term warm down makes more sense than cool down, because after exercise, your body remains warm and the process involves gradually reducing intensity rather than actively cooling. The goal is to stay warm while slowly lowering your heart rate, easing muscle tension and promoting recovery. Cool down implies a rapid reduction in temperature, which isn't the primary focus. So while body temperature does eventually drop, the immediate goal is controlled deceleration, keeping blood flow steady to prevent dizziness, aiding in metabolic waste removal and maintaining flexibility. So I'm on team ChatGPT.
That sounds like a ChatGPT answer, but I want to counter that by asking you, when you pull your food out the microwave, do you wait for it to warm down or do you wait for it to cool down? Because it is cooling down slowly to a temperature that you can eat at. but you're not warming the food down.
I mean, I don't like to think of a race situation as having just been put in the microwave or the oven.
That's what my legs feel like most of the time.
That's actually such a perfect analogy. The next time I put in like microwave lasagna for 3.5 minutes, I'm just going to imagine you're the lasagna just revolving around the track in your elite career.
Well, right now, I'm going to go for an expert Rick segue. Talking about lasagnas rotating in a microwave, I sort of wonder whether the two of us start to look like food to Mo, who's in the midst of Ramadan and of course can't eat.
You've just done a half marathon as well.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't even call that a fasted one though, because I did technically eat just before the half marathon to start my fast. If that makes any sense.
Because you're eating just before sunrise, right? So what's at the moment, that must be about 6 a.m, is it? Or is it a bit earlier than that?
Well, we eat at like dawn, so it's just before, at the brink of sunrise, which is like 4:20.
Oh, it's 4:20. Okay,
4:29.
Yeah, because official sunrise is a lot later, right? But it's at dawn where you can start to see the sunlight.
Yeah, exactly. So 4:29 was my breakfast this morning, and 6 o'clock was my half marathon.
So yeah, we're talking
kind of perfect if you were racing, but then it's the hard thing of not being able to fuel during that half marathon as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start, because there's a few different things that we're going to talk about in relation to fasting. One, how elite athletes might do it in performance, but also your experience of Ramadan. Should we start there first? For someone who might not have met anyone who's fasting at the moment, what does that look like for you? And also, can you go into how that changes year on year as well?
Specifically for Ramadan or fasting in general?
Ramadan. Let's go Ramadan.
Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know what Ramadan is, it's a period of time where Muslims fast or abstain from eating or drinking between dawn and sunset for a whole month of the year. And that kind of goes back in time. It comes earlier every year until it loops around and then starts in December and comes back again. Mm-hmm. So this year, in theory, should be a lot easier than previous years, because previous years were like in summer where we weren't eating until like 9-10 p.m. And starting food at like 2 a.m. But because
the nights are just so short.
Exactly.
So is there if you were, I don't know whether you would consider it in this way, but perhaps the easiest or best way to do it would be when Ramadan falls in like the darkest days of winter, I guess, when would make it the most straightforward to adhere to.
Exactly, yeah. So I think 2030 is going to be like over Christmas, like over December times, which is fantastic, because like you literally, that's when I was in primary school, I would do the same, because I've been fasting since primary school. Yeah. But back then it was in winter where you kind of just have breakfast at 7 a.m, go to school, miss lunch, come back, and it's dark again. So you can eat again. But yeah, so back like by then, 2030-ish, it'll be in the same kind of window. Yeah, it's the most easiest. But if you survive like Ramadan 2016, which was like August, like higher summer, then everything kind of feels easy compared to that. But yeah, that's basically what Ramadan is. I'm currently doing it the same way, like, 1 billion or 2 billion Muslims around the world are doing it as well.
But also training for London
Marathon, which makes it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because there are a lot of miles to cover in marathon training, and you're not just training for London Marathon. Can you tell us a little bit about the goal and then what the training looks like? So
my goal this year was to train for London Marathon and to hopefully get a championship time, which is, I believe, a 2:38, which is a really quick marathon. And I know we were speaking about my sub 3 not too long ago, and that's like a lot to shave off.
It's amazing. Just for on that, we should probably celebrate your progression. So from 3 hours to hopefully 2:38.
Yeah.
And what are you at the moment? What's your personal best right now?
2:43.
So you've already made huge steps.
Yeah.
And I remember bringing my little boy Sam out at the course at Milton Keynes. We were popping up everywhere to shout for you. He was absolutely buzzing, and so he loved seeing you on the channel. And then Sarah, not that long ago, I'd say it was just after as lockdown was about to lift, so 2021. Mm-hmm. We went and ran a 5K PB, which was around about high 23 minutes.
Yeah, 23:56.
23:56. And then that's 2021. We're early 2025, and you're disappointed to have not broken 20 minutes.
We talked about me, back to Mo. But I was going to say, I also got the pleasure of you storming past me in Berlin last year, which is where you ran that PB.
Yeah.
And that was, because what was the time that you'd run before Berlin? How much did you shave off for that attempt?
So the time before that was
Milton Keynes.
Yeah, so you went from 2:59 to
2:43. Yeah.
Okay. So cool.
Hopefully shave off 5 more minutes, but who knows? We'll see how it goes.
Because I feel I'm embarrassingly competitive.
Yeah.
And
you don't want Mo to be fast.
No, I mean, obviously I do from your personal perspective. From mine, I'm like, you just keep moving what I would consider to be my goalpost, because I was like, well, I would like to I was thinking I'd run 2:53, you'd run 2:59, then you've just leapfrogged me by a full 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, that's already seeming out of reach. And then if you go 5 minutes faster again, I'm going to be really upset.
Think I'll get any faster than that though. Like after that time, that's my marathon career done. And
I don't know. You said that before. So what does the training look like? How many miles a week are you doing? How many runs a week?
And what are the challenges with
I was going to say,
fasting?
I'll be 100% honest. It's been really, really tough this year compared to, because I did train for Milton Keynes, also fasted, but then the window was a lot closer to Milton Keynes. So I had like a week out. So it was more so into my taper where I was kind of fasting, rather than now it's like in the longest,
like peak
longest runs that you'd be doing, and all of them have to be fasted. So I did have a run yesterday that I was meant to do, which was like 33k, practice race pace, etc. And I just didn't do it. I woke up at 4 to eat. I had the plan to run at 7 a.m. So 3 hours, let my food digest.
Yeah.
Because for me, if it's going to be a really hard run or a long run, I'd try and do that as close to the start of the fast as possible, because then I'd be the most fueled. Yeah,
you've got the most like glycogen reserves. And so on.
Exactly that. And it was at 7 o'clock. I was like, okay, it's time to run. Put on my clothes, and then I just sat down at the edge of my bed, and I just put off the run. Just got on my Instagram, and I was just scrolling for a bit. And I was like, let me just get like 5 videos, and then I'll go.
Yeah.
Were they all the videos of yourself?
No. It was like
just scrolling through his own grid.
Caught in a doom scroll, just trying to put it off as long as possible until I felt like wanting to run. Like 5 minutes later, it was midday, and I didn't realize. And I was like, I just can't bring myself to run. Like the reality is, I wasn't ready to run. I got up, I left, I put on my shoes, like my race shoes. Left my house and was walking down the stairs to get ready, and I was just like, I'm really not feeling it. Like I'm not feeling it at all. So I went back upstairs, changed into like everyday shoes, comfortable shoes, went out and just done a 10k, came back, scrapped that run completely. Which obviously those are the kind of confidence building or breaking runs. So I kind of wanted to put it when I do feel a bit more ready to do that. So I've shifted it to next week, which is this week.
So when you do that kind of like, so that was going to be 33k, did you say?
It was meant to be 33k.
So if you've eaten at 4, run at 7, then I guess that probably takes you between 2 and 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So then you're coming back at 9:30.
Yeah.
So we're already 5.5 hours post fast.
Yeah.
And you've just run 33k.
Yeah.
And you've got to get through from 9:30 till I guess like 6 p.m.
Yeah,
roughly
6 p.m.
now.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible to me in terms of, I know how I feel after a long run, and obviously you're not. A lot of people training for a marathon, running their long runs like 33k, they'll be fueling during the run as well.
Yeah.
And you can't drink either.
No.
So
no water, no food, nothing to like go past your lips. So I do think, especially for those runs, in your head you have it that there is no plans afterwards until you can eat again, and then if you want to spend the evening doing your productive stuff, or because it's on a Sunday or it naturally land on a weekend, you shouldn't, hopefully in theory, you can plan around that.
Yeah.
But and then a lot of the other runs, whereas like, I do a tempo session on a Tuesday, again, all of my harder runs would be as close to starting my fast as possible, let that food digest and go for it, because that's when I have the most stores.
Yeah.
But a lot of my easier runs, I kind of get the day out of the way first, and then when it gets closer to breaking the fast, which is iftar, I would then run like a 10k easy in the hour leading up to it. So a nice chilled pace.
So the final meal in the morning at 4 a.m, that's suhoor?
Suhoor, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's iftar,
and then iftar to break the fast, yeah. So a lot of people only have those 2 meals. Yeah. Some people will have a third meal like at midnight, and kind of shift their whole circadian rhythm for that month.
So will you eat again in the middle of the night? Or?
So I would go to sleep just because I have the luxury of being able to like nap during the day. But a lot of people, like when I was working a full 9 to 5, for example, I would try and stay awake at night. So between iftar and suhoor, I'd stay awake, eat as much as I could in that window, and then sleep, wake up at 9, go like do work, and then finish work at 5, sleep again until I have to break my fast. That would be, I'd take like 2 4-hour naps in the day, which is kind of like a very different way of doing it. But that's just how it worked for me.
Yeah, it's the logistics of it are complex. And this is just you. I struggle to plan my day anyway, with like getting the kids out of bed in the morning and getting them packed up for school and all that sort of stuff. If I was doing that without the energy, do you feel like, so for the rest of the year outside of Ramadan, you would eat kind of 3 meals a day and snack and so on, in the way that that most people would.
Yeah.
Is that right? So then, is it harder at the beginning of Ramadan? Like when you shift from a normal, like your regular 11-month eating pattern into
And is there anything that you do outside of Ramadan to kind of help prepare, either like outside of running or within running?
I was just, so with that, I do, in the like month leading up to Ramadan, I would try and shift a bit. So put off certain meals just to get used to the fasting, or I'd maybe fast like Monday and Thursday in the month leading up to it. So I've already done like 8 days worth of fasting in the month. But I personally always run all my easy runs during the whole year fasted, and any harder runs I'll have breakfast. So like throughout the year, I've kind of accustomed myself to any sort of easy run would be wake up, go out for a run, come back and then have my breakfast. So I don't know the benefits behind that, but I just find that like it's a lot easier on my stomach to not have to digest as much food. But any sort of harder run, I try and get like a carb bar or a banana in me and then go for a run.
Got it.
But I wouldn't have a full breakfast until I'm back from my run, no matter what.
Yeah, because that's probably hitting on the crossover of when we might hear people prepping for marathons, or like elite athletes, for example, who might be using an element of like intermittent fasting in order to get physiological benefits. Because when you were training as an elite athlete, quite often you would have done your like 90-minute Sunday long runs, either fasted within the run, or did you also do some of them not having anything beforehand?
So fasted within the run was almost everything. I don't think I ever consumed anything during a training session other than maybe a drink or an electrolyte drink, but I would never have consumed carbs during training. But then I wasn't training for the marathon, but my long run on a Sunday was anything from 13 to 15 miles, an hour and a half running.
Is that for like intentional glycogen depletion?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's not the odd occasion where actually if I had been ill prior and knew that I'd been recovering from that illness, that I know, that after intense training, you get your immune system slightly suppressed. You get this dip in your immune response before it kind of comes back up again. And you can mitigate that with carbohydrate and so on. So you can mitigate that with, if I was ill or had been ill prior to it and I was back to full fitness, but still trying to protect myself, then on a 90-minute run, I might have like a gel or something at 60 minutes just to make sure I minimize that risk to my immune system. But the rest of the time I'd be running a 90-minute run where I get to about an hour and 10 minutes, and then I could feel myself being glycogen depleted. You can feel like not fully hitting the wall because I wasn't in an all-out effort, but just that. And then the last 20 minutes was like slightly attritional. But that was a deliberate coaching ploy to help me to like get the adaptation that comes from that kind of glycogen depleted training. But I struggled to run fasted. Weirdly now I don't. So now I'm running so much less, and that's probably a big part of it, that I can get up and go for a run, anything for an hour to an hour and a half probably now without eating beforehand. But when I was training as a professional, I would really struggle with that. Like other people would get up and just have a coffee or something and then run with me, but I'd have to get up kind of like you're saying at the moment and get up an hour and a half before my run and have like a decent breakfast, not massive, but enough. Otherwise I just felt I couldn't do it.
So when you say struggle with it, are you struggling because you're hungry or because you feel like you don't have the energy, or a bit of both?
Both of those things. And I think partly that might have been mental, because clearly I can do it, because I can do it now. And I was in much better shape then. But also I wonder whether I'm guessing, but my metabolism would have been running so fast at that point. For sure, and I was running so much and I was so tired all of the time. That whether you're treading such a constant fine line as an athlete, like that was my fine line. And I think I would hypothesize I'd likely got ill or would have felt weaker and not able to complete those runs. But it's very possible. Plenty of pros do it.
So then sticking with that, for the kind of non-elite athlete, the runner that might have a full-time job as well, who's training, which is probably the vast majority of people listening to this, I definitely have been guilty in the past of ending up doing a lot of my runs, or the majority of my runs, fasted, because I didn't wake up in time. Didn't want to run the risk of stomach issues during the run, so would just not have anything, at most a banana if I was bit, but even then wouldn't do it. Do you notice the benefits of like eating before a run? And like in the same way, Mo, that you're at the moment, like if you are doing a hard session, you're making sure that you're doing that in the morning. Like how long did it take you to learn kind of that feeling of, okay, this session is not going well because I don't have enough energy to do it, or this session is not going well for other reasons?
So I think, like we joke about on this podcast about it being banter over science. So we can't go too deep into it because none of us have like this super in-depth knowledge of it. But the science is pretty clear that if you want maximum performance, so if you want your absolute best marathon or even just a hard workout and you're doing that in the morning, then you need energy to do that. And the most efficient way of getting energy is through glycogen, through glucose. So having eaten something. So you can maintain steadier state, slower endurance performance by becoming fat adapted, by not eating, by fasting before runs. But if you want to absolutely maximize how fast you're going to be able to run in and perform, then you need to have eaten something to have the best possible chance. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
People do the actual fasting side of things, the intermittent fasting. So we should come on to that a little bit before we dive into our questions. Which can mean there's loads of different ways of intermittent fasting, but for a lot of people it's having a window like Mo has right now because of Ramadan, but choosing to do it for different reasons. So it might be that you I think it's hang on, we've got our notes that Owen kindly put together.
16-8.
The most popular one. Yeah, 16-8. So 16 hours of not eating and an 8-hour window to eat.
Yeah.
So in our notes, that's, for example, not eating after 8 p.m. and then you can start eating again by 12 noon the next day.
Yeah.
So actually that's not a huge fasting window actually.
Yeah, you find that because I used to do intermittent fasting for a long time, like outside of Ramadan, just because I enjoyed skipping breakfast and like having my first meal at midday.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. Your hunger hormones kind of shift to eventually, when the first few days are going to be hard, you kind of get into it as a lifestyle afterwards, and you stop feeling hungry in the morning. So you'd start to feel hungry around midday, which is when your body will send out the cues to be like, okay, time to eat again.
Yeah.
And as long as you're doing that and still eating sufficient food, then you can sustain that indefinitely. Like I know people that do it for a whole lifetime, but there's obviously other types of fasting where people shorten that window and do like a 24, so 4 hours of eating, 20 hours of fasting, which is a bit more extreme. Or I know a few others that are in the notes as well are like a full 24-hour fast.
Yeah.
Or they go on a water fast, which is like 36 hours or 72 hours, which I've personally done, which is like, that one's really tough. 72 hours of no food, like nothing except water. It got to the point where I was like, I think day 2, I just needed some texture in my mouth. So I was like making a cereal out of ice cubes and water and just like eating that. As like, so
oh my gosh, that's like, have you seen those watch me restock my ice cube selection on TikTok?
I absolutely love those videos. But yeah, it was,
I'm just imagining you in like the supermarket being like, sorry, have you got an ice cube tray in any other size?
no,
it's just I'm bored of the little circle.
No wonder you were stuck scrolling till midday the day and missed a run if you can get captivated by ice cube restocking.
Ice cube restocking is the best.
But there are like the purported benefits of different types of intermittent fasting, and it's really different for different people. And obviously, if you are worried about it or not quite sure how to go about it, go and get some proper advice and don't just leap into something that's really extreme. But the things that are talked about for things like the 16-8 are thinking and memory. And I've got a friend of mine who, over the last, 10 or 15 years, has followed various different diets for health, for weight loss, for all of these things. But she actually said to me she was doing intermittent fasting because she really helps her focus at work.
Yeah.
So thinking and memory is a thing that can be like that, your kind of clarity and focus. I would have thought it would be the opposite.
Yeah.
Like for me, I don't feel like I'm focused in the morning unless I've had something to eat. But actually, that seems to be one of the things that people report. Heart health. So intermittent fasting can help with heart health. So that's blood pressure and resting heart rate and some other measures.
Reduction of inflammation as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then physical performance. So there is some data that said, this is what I've got written down here, is young men who fasted for 16 hours showed fat loss whilst maintaining muscle mass, and mice who were fed on alternate days showed better endurance in running. Because there's other ways of doing it, aren't they? Like you can choose that you're going to, it's not full fasting, but you get the 5-2 approach has been quite popular in the last few years, where you eat normally for 5 days and then on 2 days you have like calorie restricted diet. So you only eat, say, 500 calories. So I don't know all of the science behind all of these things, but there's lots of different people trying lots of different things for lots of different reasons.
Well, I think if you think about it without getting too like airy-fairy, is the kind of 5 meals a day, 2 snacks, 3 full meals it's like a very recent thing. That's not how, like in general, in our history of humankind, we've always eaten. Like I guess our ancestors would have hunted and maybe only had 1 meal a day, which is another fasting OMAD diet. It's like 1 meal a day. Where they'd kind of eat their berries and meat or whatever they'd eat back then, and then spend like 2 or 3 days hunting. Yeah. Whereas we don't, breakfast, lunch and dinner is a very social kind of construct. Yeah. And I think there is no necessary, I don't know if there is science to support that has to be the most efficient way of eating, I guess.
I'd love to know if anyone's experienced intermittent fasting or would swear by one approach or has really struggled taking on an approach. We'd love to hear that. So if you emailed into podcast@therunningchannel.com, then we can kind of see what everyone else thinks, because it's quite a personal thing. Everyone's got a different routine for running, different routine for life. And then there's all of those reasons that you might want to try it. So I'm really interested in people's experiences.
That also links really nicely to something that I read in my psychology book that I'm now obsessed with, that it was talking about how human beings are obsessed or predisposed to love setting long-term goals or completing like long distance events like running, because of our history and the fact that our ancestors were like hunting for long periods of time or like going out for long periods of time. So really, we haven't evolved that much.
Well, we haven't evolved at all, because right now this has made me hungry. So, sorry, Mo.
No, all good. I've got 12 hours left. But no, I think, just to, I guess, conclude on the fact is that like everyone has different preferences. It depends on like what works for you. There is no best time to train when you are fasted. And I think depending on if you are doing it for religious reasons or other, you should kind of find out what, experiment with different times to make sure that it works in your window, whether you're, you feel like you need the fuel to perform, and then you make sure you train in the window you're allowed to eat, or if you feel like you can get by without it. And
big lesson, just listen to your body, be sensible. Like Mo, you chose not to go and run 33k the other day, partly because of, but I'm sure it might have been symptomatic of just how you were feeling energy wise. Like, yes, you procrastinated and scrolled on your phone, but that's probably a deeper reason that you just weren't ready to run that day.
And it's okay to adapt your training. Like this is the biggest goal I've ever set myself, and I can either beat myself up about not doing that session, or just appreciate and accept that it's a part of it's a part of the ups and downs of training. And setting yourself a goal so big, you kind of have to deal with certain sessions like that. And I've moved it to this week, so hopefully I'll still be able to attempt it. But if not, and it had to be a skip session, it's about accepting that and moving on with grace.
Nice. Well, now let's move on to some news.
with grace.
With grace.
Okay, first up, Eliud Kipchoge. He's going for his 6-7 stars. Too many stars now. So he's going to be running Sydney after having run London in April as well. Yeah,
very exciting.
And that's his first ever race in Oceania, I think.
Yeah. Do you think he'll go for it? Or is it just like a celebration of I know as an elite athlete, you can't just run a race for the sake of it, but do you think he'll just party pace?
No. I don't think he does party pace yet. I think party pace is post-retirement when you come back again.
Yeah.
Although saying that, Paula Radcliffe obviously came back recently and she's still not messing about. She's under 3 hours. So.
I ran to the second the same time as her in Tokyo, which is I thought quite fascinating.
Were you near her? Or no, she was in the elite.
I saw her ahead of me, but we finished at the exact same second.
That's cool.
Is interesting.
In good company. So it'd be interesting to see how Kipchoge goes. That's an exciting signing for Sydney. It's their first year as a marathon major, which those two things can't be unrelated.
Because you're going out to Sydney?
I'll be out in Sydney as well.
September?
End of August.
End of August. So that's not April to August.
Yeah, it's quite a quick turnaround.
Loads of time in terms of an elite marathon cycle. Obviously for Mo, just bashes one out every week.
But I guess we'll find out what the reality is of Kipchoge being competitive again. Like, you can't ever write off the greatest marathon runner of all time.
No. Yeah.
But in 2024, he, I think, finished 10th in Tokyo Marathon at the beginning of the year, which was his lowest position in a marathon, then was unable to finish Paris in the Olympics due to injury. So I love watching him run. I'm desperate for him to be back to his best. But the reality is age catches up with us.
Yeah. But do you want to know another interesting fact that I got from my psychology book?
Oh no.
We're going to get so sick of this. Yeah. So in it, someone was talking about Kipchoge, and apparently physiological tests have been done on Kipchoge, which don't show like necessarily anything that is kind of above the average or like out of this world in terms of like physiological capability, but actually like a huge component of why Kipchoge is so successful is his mentality.
Yeah.
And in the first attempt where he tried to break 2 hours round the Monza track, he was smiling the whole way. And that was like one of the things, even though he missed it like very narrowly, that was one of the things that people talk about of like his willpower and his ability to like smile through suffering.
Were you smiling on the 5K?
No, I wasn't smiling. I did try. I did have it in my head of like, remember to smile, but then
I forget the period, but I'm pretty sure he was unbeaten over the marathon between something like 2013 and 2019 or maybe even longer. But yeah, and obviously you don't win 2 Olympic marathons and run sub 2 hours in an unofficial marathon without being, one incredibly mentally tough.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, he is running London.
Which is also purported to potentially be the biggest marathon of all time in terms of number of finishes, because that was just set by New York in late 2024, and then London think they're going to beat that. So that's really exciting.
Very cool. I think
we'll blow it out of the water. I say we.
Oh, absolutely we. And very excitingly, we will be having another pop-up shop at London Marathon.
And it'll be so much more than a shop. We're not, I mean, that's like secondary.
Pop-up space.
Yeah, like
pop-up
come and visit
experience.
us. Yes, all of those things. We'll be celebrating lots of things. We're going to have a treadmill for people to run on. Jess is going to be doing a really exciting thing over the marathon weekend on the treadmill in our space. You'll be able to come and get merch, come and meet us. There'll be a live podcast. There's going to be so much stuff happening that actually I'm a bit overwhelmed by it, and I'm going to let someone else deal with it.
Nice. Same.
Yeah. So I'm just going to show up.
Yeah.
But watch this space, watch our social media and look for announcements, because we would love to see you. So anyone is coming to London, or if your friends and family are coming to London, then send them our way, because we would like as many people as possible to drop in and say hello. Definitely.
Right, should we cover some questions?
Yeah, we don't normally do this, Sarah. Rick reads this out. I don't know what we're doing.
Should I take his place?
You've got a great record of reading out place names, Sarah. So
go on. I think I can do the first one. Okay. So can I have a crack? Yeah. Donegal.
Donegal.
I thought it was Donegal.
Yes, you said Donegal.
Oh, right, Donegal. Right,
Donegal,
fine.
Yeah.
Mike from Pontefract in West Yorkshire. Hi, I have a question that I really hope TRC can help me with. I'm running the London Marathon this year. Woohoo! Come along to our pop-up.
Come and see us.
This year, and I'm following an advanced 16-week training plan, and I hope that I'm going to finish in under 3 hours. Very nice, Mike. I also have a place for Berlin Marathon in September. How should I carry my fitness through after London? I don't really want to start back on day 1, week 1 of the advanced plan. Again, 16 weeks out for Berlin. Any help or advice or recommendations would be amazing.
So this is how to connect London to Berlin. And not wanting to kind of start again.
Yeah.
Well, you won't have to start again, because the big thing for a lot of marathon plans is they're assuming that you're running a little bit, but not very much. And so you do build up from a relatively low level from that 16 weeks, although it is an advanced 16-week training plan. But I would be saying the first thing is you have to like recover properly. After the marathon. So don't just be thinking, right, I don't want to lose this fitness, so I'm going to go steaming straight back in again. You've got to give yourself a couple of weeks of like,
and that is helping TLC. Your overall fitness as well. Like the marathon itself is such a big effort that like probably the best thing that you could do would be to put yourself onto like a recovery plan or a plan that gets you through that recovery period, because it's so important to take the time, because if you do try to just bank the fitness and carry on, like you just run so many risks of not being recovered enough,
overtraining, injury,
mentally getting a bit fatigued. One thing I would say though is potentially think about what your goal is for Berlin. Like, could you move the goalpost slightly, and what is it, like a different stimulus that you want? Like if 16 weeks feels like a really long time, could you potentially do a bit of a half marathon block to start off and then trick yourself by turning that into a marathon block for the end?
That's exactly what I think, that the timing is really good for you to go a couple of weeks easy, gently build back into it, and use those first few weeks of building back into it to put a good structure back in place and do all the stuff you might have neglected towards the end of your marathon plan, like strength and conditioning, usually the thing that goes away. So get strong again in the gym. Then focus on a 10K or a half to use as like an intermediate goal on the way to the marathon. And then if you're already doing 10K or half marathon training, then you're probably running quite a lot of good quality. Because then when you start doing marathon pace, 1, the pace feels easy. And then 2, your baseline's already so high that you're not just going back to the start of a 16-week training plan. You're jumping on and leaping forwards. And that's, I mean, I would argue how Mo's gone from 259 to 243 is exactly that. Like, you're sort of almost starting from scratch that first time around. And then having real consistent training for the next 18 months where you never really had a
time off. No, agreed. I mean, I can't give any more advice than you to have. That was a perfect answer.
because we haven't had Rick keeping us to time, we're going to get in trouble, but we'll do a very quick one here. This is someone who's in need of inspiration and motivation from within the Running Channel Club. And actually, this is what the Running Channel Club's all about, is lifting people up and kind of showing that people all over the world experience running in broadly a similar way. So if you're the one that's struggling with motivation and trying to get out, or you've had an injury, or you've had a race experience like Sarah's just had, then there's going to be hundreds or thousands of other people out there that have had exactly the same experience. So this is Steffi B, who says, I'm in the middle of training for my first half marathon. The first 8 weeks went great. Ticked off every session, did a strength workout once a week, and even upped my training to 4 runs a week. By the end of week 9, everything went downhill. I had a feeling it was to do with donating blood on the Friday of week 9. And everyone after that has felt awful. My 16K didn't go to plan. I couldn't hit a single interval and ended the session after 3K instead of 8K. Decided to take a break for the rest of week 10, even skipping my long run. And I'm week 11 now, and I do feel fine, but my runs suggest otherwise. Also, Steffi's been measuring their HRV, which has been in the red until recently, which I think is... like, actually, Mo, you and I had a conversation about almost exactly what Steffi's describing here. It sounds like just a combination of life stuff, particularly maybe that giving blood, has just tipped you over the edge in terms of everything's just a bit much. And all of a sudden it goes from everything feeling great to everything feeling awful, and you think you've thrown your fitness away, whereas actually, if you describe how you felt.
So, I mean, Steffi, I was in exactly the same position not too long ago, and I even put my own, like, I guess, qualms into the club, and I came back with such positive, like, feedback from everyone. And I did speak to you about it, and you were telling me that they are normally indications of maybe your body needs a bit more time to rest and recover, and taking 1 or 2 weeks off to make sure that your body is in prime condition is so much better than continuing to go and then your body forcing you to take 4 to 6 weeks off due to overtraining or injury. And I do think it is so valid having that like reassurance from someone like yourself, Andy, to tell me that it's okay to take some time off.
Yeah, the stuff you were telling me at the time, actually, I thought you were at that point where you're probably going to need 4 to 6 weeks off.
Yeah.
But the first step for you was just easing back for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then when you did, and then you came straight back, like, relatively soon after that.
Yeah.
And ran that amazing half marathon where you felt really within control. I think you just caught it in time. So my advice for anyone feeling like this, and Steffi here, is just back off now before you do dig yourself a hole. And actually you'll find it'll bounce back quickly. But remember, like, any time off running, even if it's 2 days during a training plan, the next run when you come back, if you're like, oh my God, have I ever run before? That's how everybody feels. So that's completely normal.
Also, take it as a huge win. You said your HRV was in the red until 2 days ago. That means you have done everything right, because it's bouncing back, and it's so hard to do. But I would say a lot of people in your position, Steffi, wouldn't have taken that week 10 off, and that is such a good decision. It's so hard to do. But definitely, if you are giving yourself that time to recover, try not to beat yourself up in that time. It's so easy to do, being like, I know I need to rest. I'm so annoyed about it. But just no training plan goes perfectly. And actually, if you can, I would say, try and find an elite athlete to follow who shares a lot of their training. Like Philly Bowden does it so well. She openly admits that, like, if she sets out her training of what she's going to do, there is no way that she'll complete all of that, because no one has the perfect build up, or you can't write down everything on paper and then it goes that way. You might have, like, she was caught in a snowstorm this week, and that changed some Philly Bowden's.
That, can you? So you've got to roll with the punches a little bit, be sensible, and then in the same way as if someone told you, here's your runs for this next week, that's my training plan. This time your training plan is to get better and get healthier, and that's just as important. For sure, and I think the last thing to talk about is that just because your stats reflect that you feel okay, even if your body doesn't, then that's still an indication that you might need more rest. So listen to the stats, but also listen to your body and how you feel during that. Definitely. That's some great wisdom to finish on. So thank you so much for joining us this week, Mo. You've been amazing. Oh, thank you for having me. And best of luck for London. We are all so excited to see you out on the course. Yeah, hopefully I won't be on the course for too long, but we'll be out cheering you on. I can't wait. I can't wait for, if anyone sees me on the course, then feel free to say hi, but do come and say hi actually at the activation space that we do have, because it's going to be incredible. It's in Soho on Greek Street, I believe, so just south of Soho Square. More news to follow on all Running Channel channels, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Bye.